All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
What happened to that, Albert? Did you bail on the? You bailed on the open early? Just seemed to wrap up early. I don't know. I'm very. It's all really well timed. There's a synchronicity to everything I do, Albert. If you come to me a nanosecond early, it actually does throw me off.
Saudi Arabia pays cash.
Okay, I'm just saying that. Where's whoever's producing this? That's what I was trying to hit. I hit. The button for whoever's producing this, and I got Saudi Arabia pays cash.
Saudi Arabia pays cash.
What is going on? I don't know. Anyway.
I hate to break it to you, Mark, but I wish I could claim that error, but everything is automatic on our system. I just hit go, and the video plays, and it goes to you automatically. I wish I could have made that mistake. But...
I see. It's just automatic. Well, Albert is here.
Albert, thank you.
And so is Kim.
Kim, how are you?
Yeah.
Is he blaming you for AI? Is that what's happening?
I wasn't blaming him. I think I was blaming him, actually. Yeah.
I blame you.
All the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
I don't know what the hell they do it for, man. Every time I want to come on, the AI
I blame you.
It hits me. I don't know.
That was very inappropriate.
Let's get it on. I've got a big show today. Rothman's coming by today, bottom of the hour. And I know. John's got some thoughts on everything. He is a beloved member of our crew, our old KGO family. Our origin story is that of a successful radio show in San Francisco, news and politics, a lot of great guests. And then the entire radio station went away. I mean, they didn't, cancel our show. They canceled the whole station. No call letters anymore. They went to gambling and sports talk. So sports gambling. And we, in the shadow of that, took our show. That's where Kim comes from. That's where Albert comes from. Even Rothman, who had his own show on KGO, came from there. And we moved over here to YouTube and on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. So we're everywhere as an audio podcast in those places I just mentioned, those latter places, and then as a video and audio podcast here on YouTube. So if you're just passing through, thank you for being here. You could subscribe, cost you nothing. Smash the like button. We have a great
with your iron
community of viewers and listeners here that we didn't have on the radio, meaning we knew they were there. There were ways to text into the show, but we just didn't have the kind of relationships that we've built with the audience that we have built here. And that, I would say, is one of the most exciting aspects of this platform. Kim and myself, we're used to radio. We like to show up in pajamas and then just crack the mic after having read a bunch of material all night preparing for the show. I mean, and when you now have to shave, look halfway presentable, which is about as presentable as I can look, there are challenges. But anyway, it's great to have everyone here. As I mentioned, Rothman coming, bottom of the hour, much to get to today. Anything else that I need to know or promote, Kim?
We have a Stories from the Sky at the bottom of the show that I think everyone's going to really enjoy.
Oh, I like that too.
It's fantastic.
Right. Okay. So we'll get on that also.
And apparently, Elon Musk is causing all kinds of trouble in Washington, D.C. He went from Trump's golden boy to the thorn in Trump's side.
Yeah, from the penthouse to the doghouse.
Yeah.
That's the way it works in Washington, especially around Donald Trump. Trump is transactional. Trump is really a, what have you done for me lately? Yeah, you gave me $300 million during the campaign, but what have you done for me this week? Yes. So Musk is an interesting character, and we'll talk more about it. Really, so many facets to the Musk story, in my view, and I'll share them with you in just a moment. I wanted to mention something because I just know I will forget it, and it isn't related to politics, and it isn't really related to news, what's going on. I watched a documentary with Courtney last night. It was the second of a two-part documentary on Pee Wee Herman, and it's brilliant. And I really recommend it because Pee Wee was brilliant. Paul Rubens was brilliant. And the creativity that went into Pee-wee and the presentation of Pee-wee. You know, Pee-wee was born out of a character that was developed at the Groundlings. And what you learn in the documentary is that Pee-wee, actually, Paul Reubens, used a bunch of stuff from other characters that he developed with the Groundlings and then folded them into Pee-wee. And you see the evolution during this documentary. There's sort of these crude video passages where they show you his early work at the Groundlings. So you can see early Pee-wee, and you see this thing evolve. And he was a magnificent creative artist, performance artist. And then they cover what was the controversial part of his life, his running with the law, that adult movie theater, all of that stuff. And then how the law went on kind of a jihad against him and how he was, I think, run out of the industry. I would say that they destroyed his life in some measure. They made him a pariah. I mean, they made him an SEX offender, and that was something that he wasn't. He absolutely wasn't. And that they could suppress and destroy the creativity that lived inside this guy. I didn't know Paul Reubens. I know a lot of people who knew Paul Reubens, but I never met him. But I thought, I loved Pee-wee. I went to the live show when he was taking that live show. It was staged, well, of course, it was a Broadway show. And then it came to Los Angeles, and I saw that. But I think particularly those who watch this show, I think you have an appreciation for things that are whimsical, things that are wondrous and artistic, and I think things that are smart. And so I really recommend it because this guy, Paul Reubens, had all of that stuff. He knew what he wanted. There was an artistry to his performance and what he did, down to the open of the Pee Wee Herman show that they shot painstakingly over many days with all of these small, like animatronic type things. And he deliberately wanted kind of a crude animatronic, not a sort of smooth animatronic. He didn't make the puppets look like the Muppets, you know. I just loved Pee-wee, as you can tell. But what I really loved was that this guy, this artist, even if I'd never seen it, was flourishing in this way. And then the story of how he got crushed by an overzealous prosecutor in Los Angeles. It's disgusting. It's gross. It makes me sick what they did to this guy. So I'd love for you to, again, I have no connection to it. I just think you would find it both entertaining, enlightening, and then you might share the kind of outrage that I had. At the end of it, I mean, I was kind of down after it. I thought, gosh, it just, you know, it's what we do in this society. So it's called Pee-wee as Himself is the name of the doc.
I always thought of him as a children's performer, that it was, you know, Pee-wee's Playhouse was a kid's show.
Right, and it was a kid's show. You're right to think of it that way. But it was one of those kids shows like The Simpsons is a cartoon for kids and for adults.
Right,
I mean, that might be not a perfect parallel, but there was plenty in Pee-wee's show that adults could enjoy. So it was really well watched. It was a hit. That was a hit show. And at the beginning, they had no money, which they discuss in this. So like they're doing everything on these, like, you know, blue screen sets, really, really tough. They made a deal that really didn't allow them to do much. So, but you're right. It was the Pee-wee show, Pee-wee's Playhouse, was a kid show, but it was enjoyed by so many adults, and it was a huge hit. And of course, then the movies, and they take you through through the movies as well. There's one other doc I'll just mention. This documentary is about Allie Willis. Now, Allie Willis is a friend of the show. She was on with us on KGO several times, and you can watch this on Hulu, I believe, but it's also on HBO Max, I thought. The World According to Allie Willis. Now, Allie Willis, I'll just spend a quick second on this. She was another brilliant, creative, dynamic individual. Now, Allie was a good friend of mine, and she wrote the theme from Friends, you know, I'll be there for you. She wrote that. She wrote she wrote September for Earth, Wind, and Fire. Now, she
Do
wrote it
you
with Earth, Wind, and
remember?
Fire, but she was, collaborated with them. And she wrote Neutron Dance for the Pointer Sisters. She wrote Lead Me On, Maxine Nightingale's song, and so on. You can see like a prolific writer. And and she wrote The Color Purple, the music for The Color Purple, she wrote with Brenda Russell. And I just think you'd love this documentary too, because she's a collector of kitsch. She grew up in Detroit, and she became this funky, rebellious, creative person who was critical in all of these ways to the blossoming of these awesome songs and sort of the soundtrack to much of what we think about when we, during that era. So that's The World According to Allie Willis and the Pee Wee Herman documentary. Take those two in, and you will thank me. You will thank me later. So that's a word about that. Now,
The Mark Thompson Show.
let's get to what's happening, and it is he's calling it the big beautiful bill. Is that what he's calling it? Even though it's a big ugly mess. It contains all of this hidden pork. I mean, Elon Musk really had it right. What did Elon Musk call it? Giant. What did he say? He said that the budget betrays the American people, and Musk said you should fire all the politicians who voted for Trump's budget. I believe he called it. What did he call it, Kim?
A disgusting abomination.
Exactly. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know who you are. You know you did wrong. You know it. It's interesting because there are a lot of those in the Senate who might vote against it under normal circumstances, but they really feel quite pressured by Trump not to. Now, the pressure now, and this is what's fascinating about this, I think, in one way, is significant through Musk. Musk has money to primary a lot of these people. So you end up with sort of a corresponding pressure the other way, not to get too drawn into supporting Trump blindly.
But has Musk threatened to do that?
No, but it's implied, I think. So, Rand Paul posted, I want to see the tax cuts made permanent, but I also want to see the $5 trillion in new debt removed from the bill. At least 4 of us in the Senate feel this way. That's a key number, 4. John Rothman will discuss this with us, but if you can get 4, along with Rand Paul, or even including Rand Paul, that budget won't pass the Senate.
Well, they were saying they can't afford to lose 3 votes. So if 4 go for it, it's cooked, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and he was getting pushback on X, which is his platform, the old Twitter, the social media platform. And he, Musk I'm talking about, responded to a lot of that pushback. And he said, okay, let me get this straight. The GOP are out there, 1, spending millions on luxury hotels in Ukraine. 2, not voting on any Doge cuts. 3, spending 60% of their time on vacation. 4, not codifying executive orders. Is this, quote, major reform the American people voted for? Now, you and I probably wouldn't be cool with these Doge cuts anyway being codified in some way. But I'm just speaking to the fact that now Musk, I think, has gotten the cold slap in the face about Washington. It's transactional, it's politics, and you're getting left at the curb because kind of you've outlived your usefulness. I'll get back to that in a second. I think a big part of what's going on with Musk is not anything more than a guy who feels like he was washed out before he wanted to be washed out. Isn't that right, Kim? I mean, he really wanted to continue in the administration, even though by law he had to be eased out of the American administration by, again, the provisions of this sort of temporary status he had as a government employee.
I don't know if that's the case, if he felt tremendous pressure from Tesla and his businesses to refocus. They saw what the public work and his reputation was doing to the bottom line of businesses, and he may have felt like, I got to get out of here.
Well, let me then just put a fine point on it. He has said, I mean, it's been said in the administration. Now, this might have just been dirtying it up, and it might be, as Kim has said, that he just felt on his own he had to get back to Tesla. He definitely had a stink on him. Doge had a stink on it, and Musk was polling poorly. That's kind of what I wanted to get to. So Trump may have felt like, you're outliving your usefulness for me. I got your money. I gave you access to government. You slashed a bunch of these government agencies, dismantled a bunch of them. In the case of USAID, it's essentially gone. And in doing that, I've also given you access to Americans' data. I mean, I don't really know what you're doing, Elon. I'm sure it's Trump's view. He doesn't care. Trump's busy selling his meme coin, figuring out the resort deal in Vietnam, the resort deal in the Middle East. As I say, he's working all of this self-enrichment in between golf games. That's what Donald Trump is doing. But what he did do is give this guy, who's not really even a government employee, he's never had a day of public service in his life, Elon Musk, he gave him the keys to the kingdom. So he and his little bro-ish friends, 18 to 26 years old, go in there, they literally move into government buildings, and they call the databases of all of these different agencies in ways that we'll just never really understand or have the specifics on. So they have all that data. They've scraped all that data. And we know it because we've heard it from firsthand accounts of what was going on. So I feel like that was going on for a while, but as Doge got the stink on it, Kim, was my point, Musk began to be a problem for Trump. And while Musk wanted to continue, again, this is what reports are, Trump and the administration kind of wanted him to wrap up. Some of the stink of Musk was getting onto Trump, is kind of what I was suggesting. But if you look beyond the headlines and beyond sort of the clickbait of their divorce and now how he's turned on Trump, et cetera, and Trump's turned on Musk, you can see that he did have agenda items that he wanted to see through. Albert, put that graphic up. And these are a few of the agenda items that Musk wanted to see happen. He wanted that electric vehicle tax credit, and it was cut from the spending bill. And the ability to stay longer is kind of what I was getting at as a special government employee was denied to Elon Musk, right? Again, they washed him out for whatever reason, whatever your spin is on it. It seemed as though he wanted to stay longer. Look, he was only gaining more power by being there. So the argument somehow that, well, he'd done what he could and he was over it and Washington was just bumming him out and he had to get back to Tesla. I don't buy that argument, but maybe it's the case. He was, and this is a big one because, as you know, he picked up a bunch of government contracts just in his first couple of months doing his Doge work. He shoehorned himself into all kinds of government organizations and all kinds of government deals so that Starlink and other things that served Musk's bottom line could be taken care of. And here is number 3 on this list. Denied use of the Starlink satellite system for air traffic control. That is to say, within this Trump administration, they didn't make the FAA use Starlink satellite systems for air traffic control. That was huge. You wanted to get Starlink in that role. And finally, Trump pulled the nomination of Jared Isaacman. He is the friend of Elon Musk that Musk wanted to see running NASA. With SpaceX, a huge contract linked to NASA can only be helped if your buddy, Jared Isaacman, is running NASA. Well, Trump pulled that nomination, and I don't have any more insight, and there hasn't been any good reporting on it that I've seen as to why. But Musk had to take that personally on some level. So you add that all together, and these are things that leave Musk with a bad taste in his mouth. Again, in my view, he was granted a wide berth to go through government institutions and government agencies and scrape all of our data, and we don't know where that's going to end up. Just as they've granted now Palantir tremendous contracts to pull data from all of these different government agencies. We talked about it yesterday, and that video is up. So I would suggest that Musk was shown the door sooner than he wanted. But now he's biting back, right? So that's another reason I think he was shown the door sooner than he wanted, because if he was wanting to get away from Washington and just get away from it all, it's all leaving a bad taste in my mouth, I'm above this, I'm Elon Musk, then he wouldn't be getting involved in the rugby scrum of what's going to happen with this bill. And now he is smearing this bill and smearing those who are on Capitol Hill who are voting for this bill. It's already passed the House, and some of the House members who voted for it, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example, said, I didn't realize it had a provision in there that leaves AI unregulated for the next decade.
Yeah.
That's literally snuck into the bill. There's a bunch of stuff snuck into the bill. And that's just one thing. The fact that the president doesn't have to respect any kind of injunction on any kind of executive order and can't be held in contempt of court. That's in there too. Now, what the hell does that have to do with a budget? Nothing. That stuff is all in this huge, huge bill. You have the Mike Johnson stuff. Here's Johnson's reaction to Musk and the fact that Musk is calling this new bill utter BS and a total pork-filled waste of money.
Look, let me just address the Elon controversy and tell you that I consider Elon a friend. He's obviously brilliant. I just told you we credit him with all the big changes with Doge and everything else. It's curious to me what happened this week. And I mean, full disclosure, Elon and I had a great conversation, about a half-hour long talk on Monday this week. Monday morning, and we talked about the big beautiful bill, because I think he was trying to make a joke a couple of days earlier. It can't be big and beautiful, and I started the conversation. Oh yes, it can, my friend. It's very beautiful. So we talked about all the record level of savings. My friends, no government in the history of mankind has ever cut $1.6 trillion in a piece of legislation. We're doing that here. I mean, the extraordinary level of savings and the historic level of tax cuts at the same time, and all these great policy prescriptions. And I talked to Elon through all that and explained to him what we're doing, and that this is just the beginning of a long process of making government more efficient and effective, of cutting wasteful spending, fraud, and abuse. And you can't do it all in one bill. It took Congress decades to get to this situation. It's going to take us a little while to get out of it, but we have a very specific plan to do that. And Elon was encouraged by that conversation. It was a very friendly, very fruitful conversation together. And he and I talked about the midterm elections, and he said, well, I'm going to help. We got to make sure that the Republicans keep the House majority. We can't have the president impeached, which is what the Democrats would do on day one, as we all well know. And we've got to continue this. The Trump administration needs 4 years to do all this reform, not 2 years. The Biden administration, Biden-Harris, made such a disaster of every metric of public policy, it's going to take us more than one bill to fix it all. Elon and I left on a great note. We were texting one another, happy texts, Monday. And then yesterday, 24 hours later, he does a 180 and he comes out and opposes the bill. And it surprised me, frankly. And I don't take it personal. We don't take it personal. Policy differences are not personal. I think he's flat wrong. I think he's way off on this, and I've told him as much, and I've said it publicly and privately. I'm very consistent in that. But am I concerned about the effect of this on the midterms? I'm not. Let me tell you why. Because when the big beautiful bill is done and signed into law, every single American is going to do better. This bill is geared for middle and working class Americans, and they are going to feel the effects of it, and they're going to feel it before the midterm elections. So I have no concern whatsoever. I'm absolutely convinced that we're going to win the midterms and grow the House majority, because we're delivering for the American people and fulfilling our campaign promises, and we'll see how that happens.
Yeah, so that's the rap. He's got that rap pretty well loaded, doesn't it, Kim?
You ever hear that phrase, don't BS a BSer? He's got this way of talking that it's kind of low and fast, almost like he's telling you a secret, but if he talks fast enough and low enough, you won't realize that he's shoveling a giant load of crap your way. I mean, did you hear what he said? Like, he's lying. He's sitting up there shoveling the crap and lying.
No, it's true. What Kim says is absolutely true. And Johnson squired this through the House, and one of the keys to that is that some of these House members don't read the bill. You heard Marjorie Taylor Greene is just one of them. I mean, I loathe Marjorie Taylor Greene, but I'll give her credit for at least admitting she doesn't, I guess she
Well-
was caught. They cornered her, right? And they said, she
admitted it. And when she found out that that they won't be able to regulate AI for the next decade, that was a bridge too far. Like ripping medical care away from the nation's poor, that's cool. But when you can't regulate AI for 10 years, that's where it got her. She's like, I can't vote for that. The AI thing, that gets me. Yeah.
Yeah.
She didn't know what she was voting for. How embarrassing is that?
I mean, and I guess the truth is she wouldn't even have admitted it had she not been cornered that way. Musk isn't gone, says Vilma. Trump said Musk is actually going to be back for some cabinet meetings, etc. That doesn't seem gone to me. I think Musk is too powerful a figure. He's too wealthy a man. His power comes from his wealth. I get it. He's got the shimmer of a successful entrepreneur on him, but it's his money that animates politics. It's his money that can be so useful to Trump and the GOP. Look at what happened with J.D. Vance. The only reason J.D. Vance is vice president of the United States is because of Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel hired J.D. Vance, put him in a couple of companies he didn't do particularly well with, then plucked him from the third company that Thiel had put him with and put him into a Senate race, and Thiel dropped $7 million on that Senate race. J.D. Vance won that Senate race. And from that Senate perch, he was able to leap to the vice presidency. So that's how stuff happens. If you look at it in that context, Musk is still valuable. Why would you want to in any way anger a guy who's got that kind of wallet?
But also, that was said before he came out against the big bill full of BS, right? I mean, there may be a difference now that he's called it an abomination. Trump may not welcome him back to cabinet meetings anymore. That might be it.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, I think, as I say, it's all transactional. It's all, I mean, look at the people, Steve Bannon's a great example. Steve Bannon and Trump are hurling fireballs at each other after Bannon left the White House. That was in Trump season 1.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, Bannon's a big backer of Trump, big ally of Trump, advisor to Trump. So I wouldn't close the door on Musk. It might be. I mean, you could be right that there's so much bad blood, and he's angry that he came out, that it might be the end. But I think it's not quite over. It's a
sayonara, sucker.
I don't know if it's sayonara, sucker, quite for Musk. I did want to mention, and then I want to get to John Rothman, the growth of Doge, though, regardless of whether Musk is there, because the White House had an addendum onto the budget which puts money aside for the growth of Doge. Remember, Doge is a great smokescreen. It's a smokescreen for waste, fraud, and abuse, really covering cuts that they want to make and dismantling the U.S. government. That's what they want. They want to privatize a lot of things. The dysfunctionality of government actually serves the purpose of privatizing everything. You see, government can't get anything done. Let's turn it over to private industry. They get things done. Meanwhile, before these guys showed up, no one had ever missed a Social Security check. I mean, it's a fact that these agencies, while every agency and every huge government agency and private company is going to have some fraud. And I don't mean to, scoot over it at all, but it's not the essential aspect of what these federal agencies are. I think the central aspect of these agencies he's gone after, USAID, EPA, Social Security Administration. I mean, these are well-functioning government agencies anyway. So Doge is a smokescreen because Doge, people can still associate it with the hunting of waste, fraud, and abuse. Anyway, White House put in a budget request to increase that Doge budget. That was in an addendum. And they want to see steep cuts to energy and environmental services. They also say they want to make cuts in non-defense discretionary spending of all sorts. Again, if you were really serious about cutting and looking for waste, fraud, and abuse, you'd start across the Potomac River at the Pentagon. There is no more wasteful institution in the world than the Defense Department and the Pentagon. But again, their Doge plan, as they expand Doge without Musk now, is to eliminate, with steep cuts, non-defense discretionary spending. They want a Doge to grow.
They're going to bump up the number of staff members at Doge from about 85, 89 to more than 150. They're going to double the spending. So next fiscal year, Doge will have more than $40 million to spend and its zeal to cut, and also $10 million for a new upgraded computer system at Doge as well. So yeah, they're increasing Doge, and I guess it's going to be around for a while.
Yeah. I mean, they have, as Kim has said, they've staffed it, they're funding it. Doge and the Doge team are expanding. They're going to be given more power. And once again, as long as they're flying that flag of waste, fraud, and abuse, they can get away with a lot. So look for that fiscal spending. By the way, if you're wondering, did you say it's 45 million? From 45, they're going to increase, I believe. They're into the like $55-60 million budget just for modernization of software and a lot of the programs that they pursue under the Doge banner, reimbursement, et cetera. That's all going to be expanded in the days ahead, with or without Musk is the point. And it likely will be without Musk in the short term. So that's the latest on Doge, but prepare for plenty more Doge activity, but without the figurehead of Donald Trump, Donald Trump's best friend and chief donor, Elon Musk.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I want to quickly see if there's anything I need to do. No, I don't think so. I do like delaying, but I'd like without any further delay. Oh, can I have one other thing that I can? Mike Ekstrom, I have a big shout out for you for a $20 super sticker.
Big shout out.
Yeah. Very, very cool, Mike. Thank you. We are a crowd-funded show, so those of you who are on Patreon and PayPal and support us, I appreciate it. And those of you who, after hours, leave us something, and those who, during the show, pass on a super chat, like Soul Seeker Sandy Wolf. Tax the rich, she says. Problem solved.
There you go.
Well, there are more and more rich people, so that would seem to do, I just remember the 1% tax that Elizabeth Warren used to talk about, 1% on billionaires, and we couldn't get that through. Couldn't get any traction on that. Really? I mean, like, how can that not be politically viable? 1% tax on billionaires. I mean, what is the constituency that you are bowing to that wouldn't be okay with that? There can only be one, the billionaires. So it's utterly disgusting that we can't get some kind of reasonable tax on the rich. And if you go back, and Rothman can tell you this, I mean, the taxes historically in this country, back in the middle of the last century, they were massive. In the 60s, massive taxes on the wealthiest Americans. So it's out there. Just drinking my Coachella Valley coffee. This is freshly grown beans. These are freshly harvested beans, hand roasted, and I'm having it right off the. You can get it too, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Use our discount code MARKT at checkout for more. Again, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, Mark T for 10% off all coffee, tea, spices, everything on the website. Get on it. Enjoy it like we do.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Put it together for lecturer and broadcaster, podcaster, John Rothmann. John, you're a student of American and presidential history. Just because it was mentioned by one of our viewers and listeners, tax the rich, you can remember maybe more clearly than I, the top tax brackets in this country in the 60s were roughly what?
It depended on your level of income.
No, the top ones, the richest.
90%.
What? Say it again.
90%.
Yeah. So that's my point. 90%. I mean, it's just. I mean, this is where we come from, and now we're scraping just to keep any kind of reasonable taxation on these wealthiest Americans.
Yeah. Can I just add, you looked for a term, I was listening, but I didn't think you said it, a disgusting abomination.
Right.
That is how Elon Musk has termed this bill. And I heard you ask the question, who's going to be watching this? The answer is, I'm going to be watching Josh Hawley. Because if Josh Hawley joins with Rand Paul and a few other key senators, this thing will go down. And that would be a fundamentally disastrous moment for Donald Trump. And it should go down. It is an abomination.
Give me the issues that we have with it, John.
Well, all you have to do is take a look at the fact that it is a pork barrel bill. You have to understand that it passed by one vote.
What does a pork barrel bill mean, John?
It means there's a lot of stuff in there that has nothing to do with anything except paying people off. And that's what they're doing with members of Congress. Look, all you have to do is understand that what Donald Trump is pushing now would hurt people on Medicaid, would hurt people who are in need of assistance with FEMA. I mean, you go down the list and you watch the butchering that is taking place. This was not done carefully or with a considered forethought. And when you have the architect of all of this, I'm of course referring to Elon Musk, now calling this a disgusting abomination. What does that tell you? And so my feeling is that if Trump gets it through, the Republicans are going to be hung with this, and eventually it'll cost them future elections. There's just no excuse for it. No excuse at all.
Well, the last part of what you said intrigues me the most, because I'm wondering about the politics on the back end of this. So somehow, with the pressure of Donald Trump, the charisma of Donald Trump, the empty promises of Donald Trump, who knows? Come to Mar-a-Lago. We'll have a wild weekend together. It's great. We really appreciate it. America, make America great again. And he gets it through. Whatever he has to say, whatever he has to do, I'll take care of your district. I'll take care of your state. On the back end of that, what is the concern on the part of House members who voted for it and senators who may do similarly?
Building up the national deficit. I mean, the debt grows in the terms of trillions of dollars. This is no joke. And by the way, take somebody like Josh Hawley. I mean, really examine him. He represents a state where a tremendous number of citizens are on Medicaid.
That's in Missouri, right?
That's right. And if you cut aid to those in Missouri who count on Medicaid, they're going to blame Josh Hawley. And Josh Hawley, by the way, has national aspirations. He'd like to be president or vice president one day.
This is what I wanted to get to, though. So what you're saying is there are politically damaging aspects to supporting this bill, not to mention the fact, this is kind of what I was hinting at earlier, that Musk, having been vocal about the abomination that this bill is, might even drop a little of his magic money dust on some of those campaigns when they come up to vote, which is, again, there'll be midterms and then.
Yeah, but take a look at what's on the screen right now. $2 trillion is a lot of money. $2.5 trillion is more money. And that is what we are talking about adding to the national debt. I mean, this is the Republican Party, for God's sake. The party of, theoretically anyway, fiscal responsibility.
Well, that is complete. That is complete hypothetical. It's complete theory, because in practice, what happens under Republican administrations, John Rothman?
Well, unfortunately, the national deficit grows even more.
Yeah,
and we saw that for a variety of circumstances under George W. Bush.
You saw it under Reagan. You saw it under Bush. You saw under every administration,
except Richard Nixon, who came in with the last president to have a balanced budget. I hasten to point that out.
Well, I know you worked for Nixon, but he left the building early. We don't know how it would have worked out, do we? But I do think that this is a completely bizarre, twisted notion that I suppose it's a credit to branding or a credit to PR or whatever, that Republicans have this sense of fiscal responsibility. out there in the zeitgeist, because the reality is, as I just said, every Republican administration has grown the deficit.
Yeah, and
Every
take a look at
single
what
one.
you said. You said a moment ago about Doge. Doge isn't a legal operation unless Congress makes it a legal operation, and only the Republicans would dream of doing that, and they're going to be held accountable for that too. I mean, this is the most absurd situation I've ever seen in the United States of America. We've never had anything like it. Oh, wait, doesn't Donald Trump say that all the time?
Yes, he does.
There's never been anything like this.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you. On cue. Boy, I'll tell you.
It is, I guess it's bizarre in some sense. I think what's happening with the lack of due process in this country may rival this for me, top priority. I mean, these are all things that are 5-alarm fires, probably you could say.
Can you imagine? Look, we just had another outbreak of Jew hatred, and it was a terrible thing. And the fellow who did it, who was here initially on a legal basis, then violated his term here. Now they've rounded up 5 members of his family.
You're talking, excuse me, I'm talking about the Molotov cocktail throwing guys.
Now they're rounding up his family. They're going to deport the family. If I were held responsible for everything my children did or that my parents did, well, I don't want to say anything bad about my parents, but you understand what I'm saying. This is absurd. This is not the United States of America. And in terms of the way our legal system should work, and it's shameful. And when you talk still about suspending habeas corpus, which is what the Trump administration is doing, including the Attorney General of the United States, you have to
explain what suspending habeas corpus means.
What it would mean is that your right to a speedy trial would be gone. Your right
to be in front of a judge at all would be gone.
That's right. And so I don't understand. Let me tell you, I was a Republican for many years. If any Democrat
by the way, I always wanted to ask you this. What appealed to you about the Republican Party in the 70s that you would want to become a Republican?
No. In the 50s and 60s. I hate to say how old I am.
Well, you worked for the Nixon administration. That was late 60s into early 70s, wasn't it?
The answer to your question is the Southern Democrats so offended me. Their obstruction of anything dealing with civil rights, voting rights. And in the end, what happened is that all of those Southerners became Republicans, and the Republican Party essentially shifted its stance, the Southern strategy, as it was termed. Mm-hmm. And the Republican Party once had a liberal wing that was truly a liberal wing. And you had an alliance between liberal Republicans and liberal Democrats to make sure that social justice was clear. May I just, because we were originally.
Well, I would just say one thing, but because I know I love when you do these pivots, but I just want to keep you on this one topic, because I think you're seeing, John, right now, the very same change that you saw in the Republican Party back then. You're seeing it now in a far more alarming sense. So this isn't your daddy's Republican Party, even if your daddy was from the 90s. You know what I mean?
Agree with you.
Yeah.
I want to say a word too, because I live in San Francisco, and I knew Harvey Milk. Harvey Milk and I were friends. And the announcement yesterday by Pete Hegseth at the instruction of Donald Trump that they're taking Harvey's name off this Navy ship.
Yeah, Harvey served in the Navy. Harvey served
in the Navy. He was a Korean War vet. He exited the military because he was gay. He came here to San Francisco. He developed a great passion for human rights and civil rights. I worked with him on a variety of issues. And all I can tell you is the idea that not only Harvey Milk, who was a good, honorable, decent guy, and believe me, I can say that because I knew him quite well, but you're talking about Thurgood Marshall. They're talking about taking Thurgood Marshall's name off. They're talking about what they're doing at this moment is so abhorrent to everything I believe, everything I think, everything I feel. And there ought to be a giant outcry. And there is from some circles, but not enough. And clearly, Hegseth is following Trump's instructions. And it is just a shame that the United States Navy ship named for Harvey will now have a different name. And so all I can tell you is I find everything about the Trump administration and what it's doing to be objectionable. And that's the simple truth. And I know I'm supposed to be relatively objective when I come on this show. And even on my show on
What?
KGO, I was notorious for being relatively objective. But I can't be objective about this. This is obscene.
Kim, did you
Kim,
have something for
you
the
wanna say
Honorable
something?
Rothman?
I do have a question for you, John Rothman, because you talk a lot about the switching of parties, and there was recently two high-profile party switchers. I think the man's name is Joe Walsh, who was a former
Yes.
Republican
He
congressman
was a
who
Republican congressman who's become a
yeah,
Democrat.
he just flipped over to being a Democrat because he said he didn't want to be an a-hole and a jerk, right? And he realized that what he had been talking about when he was a Republican wasn't who he was, not who he wanted to be. And then today, Karine Jean-Pierre, the former White House spokesperson for Joe Biden, has decided to switch parties. She becomes a Democrat. What kind of I think a lot of people.
No. She becomes an
Oh, she
independent.
became an independent, rather. She became
He
an
became an
independent, yeah.
independent.
From a Democrat to an independent. I'm sorry, I misspoke. But I guess it begs the question. I think a lot of people find some type of identity, personal identity in a political party where it's more than just a political party, but like a way of life and who we are. And, this is what my daddy was, and this is what I am. This is who our family is. What kind of soul searching and how hard is it to go from losing that part of your identity to picking up a different party and becoming someone else?
Well, the identity that I had in the Republican Party was completely established. I'd served as president of the Teenage Republicans. I had served as a member of the Republican State Central Committee. I'm the biographer of Harold Stassen. My identification with the Republican Party was clear and complete. And when I left the Republican Party, I gave an answer that Ronald Reagan once gave about why he left the Democratic Party. He said, "I didn't leave the party, they left me." And I think that's a very clear, precise way of saying that the Republican Party has failed. And the tragedy for the Republican Party is that when Donald Trump is gone, they are going to live with his legacy. And that's why this vote in the House and in the Senate is so important. It may be Trump's big bill, but the reality is the Republicans will have to embrace it and be responsible for it. And I think they will take the heat for it for years and years to come, and deservedly so.
Well, I would agree with the fact that there'll be a lot of heat because it is destructive, and the heat that you described, though, will be slow. It'll be a slow boil. Now, I think there'll be some immediate effects of even this this tariff that he's put on steel. I mean, there are
unbelievable.
There are a lot of industries that depend on this steel, and now you put a 50% tariff on steel. You're effectively cutting off all imported steel, and so construction will be affected. The car industry will be affected. I mean, literally, just look around you.
The cans that we buy things in our supermarkets will be gone. I mean,
so these are all things. But MAGA would say, John, to what you just said is, yeah, we are here, and there is going to be a MAGA effect, and we're going to continue after Donald Trump. And here's how they win it over, and this speaks to political parties and their identities. They win it over how? They won it over largely because of immigration and this trans/DEI/wokeism jihad they're on. And it is politically effective, even as we know that, to a person, many of these MAGA people probably wouldn't have a problem with, their gay hairdresser, their gay brother, the idea that gay is even a thing in America anymore is insane to me. But
you're right.
They're able to package it, these social issues,
but they won't be able to,
and that's one of the things that led them to prominence.
Pocketbook issues are going to overtake them. I have to say a word to you today about the rise in Jew hatred in the United States of America, because in the Jewish community today, there is a tremendous fear. And I want to use that term advisedly. Go to a local synagogue, go to a local Jewish community center. You will see security beefed up unbelievably because of not only what happened in Boulder, Colorado, which was an abomination, talk about an abomination, but what happened in Washington, D.C. There is not a Jew in the United States who is not concerned about safety. And if a major segment of this community in our United States of America has to be afraid because of who they are, well, as one of my African American friends said, now we all understand it's not just African Americans, it's Jews and others. And clearly, when you take a look now at what Donald Trump is doing in terms of his plans for foreign policy, it's astounding. We haven't even mentioned. I know we have such limited time, Mark, and I blame you for that. I want you to know.
Yeah.
But when you talk about what's happening in Ukraine right
I blame you.
Okay, maybe it's
if
my
you
fault.
talk
Go
about
ahead.
what's happening in Ukraine now, and you talk about what the Russians did, the Ukrainians did rather to the Russians, it's absolutely astounding. Not only the hitting of the airplanes, but also the blowing up of the bridge. I mean, you've got a major war going on. And by the way, at the same time, and we've talked about Iran before, it appears that the talks between Iran and the United States are not going well. And Donald Trump is essentially threatening to respond if he doesn't get his way. And
Well,
this
they're
is
close
going-
to. You do this, and you go, and what about this, and what about that? I don't know. I could double back like 5 minutes ago and follow up, but I'll just give you. I'm gonna on the Iran thing. I'm gonna ask you to build that out a little bit because they're really close to having a reactor-ready plutonium, are they not?
They are, and everybody understands it. And by the way, that doesn't come from the United States or from Israel. It comes from the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency of the United Nations, which is hardly a neutral or objective group when it comes to some of these issues.
When you say that, what do you mean?
The United Nations has a bias
They
when it
lean
comes to
toward
Israel and the Middle East. There's no question about it. But I would suggest
but how is that germane in the case of Iran and the plutonium enrichment?
Because traditionally there would be an alliance which says that Iran has a right to protect itself. But the problem is the Saudis view Iran as a major threat. And I could mention in the context of Ukraine, the largest nuclear facility in Europe is located in Ukraine. And there have been attempted assaults on that.
Well, it's been hit. It's been hit by fire.
That's right. So, but I'm talking about aerial assault. So we have, I mean, there is so much going on right now that should cause grave concern. And we have a president in the White House who, well, if he doesn't get his way, he just walks away. And that's what scares me.
You mentioned Iran. Let me ask you about the calculus of what's going on with the Israelis and Gaza.
Well, the Israelis will take it out if they don't, if there isn't a proper response.
No. But I'm not. By the way, that could have its own incredibly disastrous
You're absolutely right. But remember,
yeah.
if one low-grade nuclear weapon, a Hiroshima-type bomb, which is a low-grade nuclear weapon, hit Tel Aviv, there would be millions of people killed instantaneously, and it would be the end of Israel as a viable force.
How do you do the arithmetic on what's happening in Gaza now? It's a real, it's a horror show, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And one has to remember first that this happened because of Hamas and what they did to Israel and the attack on Israel, and their hostages still being held. In fact, the demonstration which took place in Boulder was a peaceful walk by mostly elderly people to call attention to the fact that hostages are still being held by Hamas. I think what's happening in Gaza is a disgrace. By the way, if the world wanted to solve the problem, it's very simple. Let the United Nations come into Gaza with relief, and let the United Nations administer it, and let there be observers from Israel, from Hamas, from whoever you want, to make sure that it's all legitimate. What we're seeing now is the people of Gaza being held hostage, and it's not Israel that's holding them hostage. It is the attitude of Hamas at this moment, and I think the Arab world understands that very clearly.
So you're saying that the NGOs that go in there with relief,
huge bias.
They're not. You're saying that they're not. There's not a neutrality. There's a militarized aspect to that, or what do you?
I think no. There is the understanding that many of these NGOs, non-governmental operations, are pro-Hamas, and that represents a serious problem. Look, when the Israelis are compelled to take out the Hamas leader, as happened again last week, where was the Hamas leader hiding? Underneath the largest hospital in Gaza, in a bunker. And the Israelis said, we gave warning, and they did. They said, we're going to get you wherever you are. And
wouldn't there be a solution related to, you mentioned the UN, some kind of UN peacekeeping force, some kind of neutral, at least I understand in quotes, the UN, don't think the Israelis see the UN as a neutral.
Absolutely. It's not a neutral body.
Yeah,
but I would be willing to trust if the blue helmets, as they were called,
right,
were called in with no weapons just to administer aid. And that would be something that would be very interesting. Look, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy created by Hamas. And I must say, one of the other tragedies in all of this is the Palestinian Authority, which is theoretically the legal representative of the Palestinian people, is completely impotent. And they are quaking in their boots that Hamas goes after them. So this is an unfolding tragedy. The Middle East, Ukraine, and I would point out quickly, not to shift gears once again, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, and Poland are all worried about Putin. And where is the restraint on Putin? Donald Trump has a conversation with him. It doesn't make any difference to Putin. He has a program. Oh, one other quick point. Are you aware that most of the National Security Council was laid off? That Trump dismissed them? Now, I've been involved in foreign policy for years, and I've very often relied on people in the National Security Council for information. You take those experts and you remove them. Who's running the show? Stephen Miller? For God's sake, did you hear what Stephen Miller said? I always tell you to pull it up, but you can hear it. It was on CNN. It was fascinating. The Democratic Party, he said, should rename itself the Communist Party. Did you hear me? On CNN, to millions of people, the Democratic Party should rename itself the Communist Party. And when you
it's funny that you're so angry about that. That didn't even move my meter. It's like that's just like it's ridiculous propaganda. It reminds me like this isn't 1958, dude. I don't know what
you're right.
This Communist Party thing. I mean, it's so absurd. You would use that. It's the only invective that he could marshal at that moment. It was just he should have just said they're a bunch of stupid idiots. You know what I mean? It was just a dumb thing to say.
He is making policy on questions of immigration.
I see what you're saying. You're saying, look, that's the guy who's making policy. Okay, that's
this is not a person without significant authority and power in Washington. Can you imagine that? And I'm going to watch on CNN, by the way. They're doing the thing on Sunday night or Saturday night rather, the special on Edward R. Murrow. I can hear it now. And you may recall that I got permission from Casey Murrow, Edward R. Murrow's son, and we did a 4-hour late night broadcast on KGO on Edward R. Murrow. I had permission to use all the sound.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that. That's really great. Good for you.
It was amazing. And so
do you feel a little jealous of George Clooney, is what you're telling me, John Rothman, because he was able to actually mount a Broadway show and a presentation that's now on CNN, and you just got
you know what I'm really jealous of? The fact that we don't have any broadcasters who stand up the way Edward R. Murrow stood up in a clear, precise way.
Well, you have capitulation on the part of broadcasters, actually. Let me just, because you mentioned it, I never got your reaction to the Jake Tapper story that continues to pay dividends for the right on the fact that Biden was checked out a lot of the time, just wasn't, the mental acuity challenges that Joe Biden had were far more significant than were being reported at the time.
Have you read the book?
No, and I have no intention of reading it.
Okay. I read the book. I read it with great care. There is no question that Joe Biden was impaired. By the way, those of us who called for Joe Biden to withdraw from the race, which I did early on, as you will recall, on this broadcast as well, are not surprised. Joe Biden is no longer an issue. And you heard what the Republicans are talking about now? Further investigation of Joe Biden. Further investigation of the Biden crime family. Wait a minute. Who's concluding billion-dollar deals right now? The Trump children, for God's sake. The hypocrisy is so overwhelming, I can't even begin to describe it. But my answer to you about Joe Biden is, yes, it was the greatest cover-up since Woodrow Wilson. And many will recall that Wilson had a stroke in September of 1919 and remained in power until March 4th, 1921.
You read the book, so tell me, give me an example of how the cover-up went and how he just didn't know where he was and it was all right. Give me an example. Those of us who are not going to read the book, I have no intention of reading it, so tell me what the story was.
I think the bottom line is that, like anyone at his age, there is a loss of ability to function.
Sure, but don't give me the bottom line. Give me an example. Line is you read the book, you said. Go ahead, give me an example.
His wife and his staff covered up in order to maintain Joe Biden's authority. Okay. And this is not new. Edith Bowling Galt Wilson covered up for her husband. The difference is we're living in the 21st century. But Jake Tapper did a great, good service, and the book is really, and his co-author, whose name escapes me at the moment, but this was a good, solid book.
Well, I have to say, John, I said the same thing you did. I believe I said it last week, which is, this idea somehow that you're covering for the infirmity of the chief executive is not a new thing. I mean, it goes back to FDR not wanting to be seen and, sort of the compromised position that polio had left him. You cited these other examples. I think Ronald Reagan wasn't all there all the time. I mean, I really think that, as you suggest, with age comes a diminishment of mental acuity a lot of the time. And I think with Donald Trump, he's on his own thing. Look,
no, of course, look, Donald Trump is diminished. Look at the mistakes he makes.
They can't even get him to read the presidential daily briefing. He doesn't look at it, and now they're looking at ways they can package it like a Fox News segment, because that's the only way they can get his attention. This is literally what Tulsi Gabbard is saying to staffers. Forget about packaging something that he reads. Forget about a one-page. Forget about using his name in a few paragraphs that fill him in. Let's actually produce a video, because that's the only way that this president may actually take a briefing.
And it won't. And that won't be acceptable, because they'll say that video is edited. And by the way, with Biden, what did Fox do? And I won't call it Fox News. That's an oxymoron to me. Fox did edited films about Biden in order to make him look even worse than he was. So my answer is the next election is going to produce younger candidates. That's for damn sure. But I want I've noticed Biden aged better than most folks, says Surfing Tumbleweed. Yeah. But his speech impediment has been abused. I'm so sick of it. Yeah, I would say this about that, John, and I think you'd agree. In this media age, you do need someone who comes across well on television, a communicator. That was what Reagan was. Reagan was the great communicator, right? He was an actor. He was able to sell it. You need somebody who is top of ticket from that cloth, I think. You know what I remember? In 1992, Reagan had not yet been officially diagnosed with Alzheimer's, but he was clearly slowing up. He was out of office. He delivered one of the most masterful performances before the Republican National Convention in 1992 because he was just what you said, an actor. He knew his lines. And this is going to be a real issue, I think, in the future about presidents, and it won't change because the job of a president's staff is to cover up for him. That's the job.
When appropriate. You'll love this comment that comes in from Penny. Mark, God damn it, stop talking over John Rothman.
Why are you yelling?
Wow. Stop talking over John Rothman. If I don't talk over John Rothman, I won't get a goddamn word in on this show. Are you kidding? I'm not talking enough over John Rothman. How dare you, Penny? Penny, how could you take me out like that? My God. It's crazy. You
cannot say you love your country.
Unreal.
I know we're ending because I know you're running out of time, but I just want to remind everybody that term of the Supreme Court ends shortly, this June, coming up. And there will be major decisions being rendered dealing with Donald Trump, dealing with Doge, dealing with a whole bunch of stuff. And I, for one, am waiting, and I've said it before, but I want to reinforce it. I'm watching Amy Coney Barrett, who is now under vigorous attack from the Trump administration, and I'm watching Chief Justice John Roberts as the two potential swing votes. I know already what Alito and Thomas are going to do. I know what the liberals on the court are going to do. But it is the question of these swing votes. And did you hear the statement that Donald Trump is upset with the Supreme Court people that he put on because they're not doing what he wants? And I would remind Donald Trump something he seems to have forgotten, and that is that the Supreme Court and our judiciary are independent branches of government. That's what check and balance is all about. But remember, Trump embraces a concept called the unitary presidency, which means he doesn't want any opposition from anywhere, anytime, anyway. And by the way, you alluded to the fact that the person who was going to be put in charge of NASA, who was a friend of Elon Musk's, his nomination is now being withdrawn. And you didn't want to draw the conclusion, but I'll draw the conclusion. Donald Trump is a vindictive person, and he will do now everything he can without directly confronting Elon Musk, because Musk is maybe even too powerful in terms of a sense. And I think this is an example of that vindictiveness.
I love talking to you, and I enjoy even more talking over you. Yes, I have to shoehorn my comments in between Rothman because he'll just keep going. But somebody somebody says this. I can't post this because I'll be, they'll downgrade me, but I've got a yellow card, somebody, related to Rothman. Albert, can I put the F word up there, or what happens if I put the F word up there? What are they going to do?
Let's not do that.
You know, whenever anybody says...
We can? All right, I'm going to do it.
Whenever anybody says the F word, I say there's another 4-letter word that begins with F. It's fork. And so I always substitute fork for the other.
Well, then James W. says, we hear you enough, Mark.
What?
Give John his time. You'll be doing 3 hours on KFI, so be forking nice to John, please.
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Who are these people? This is absolutely outrageous.
These are obviously very discriminating, very knowledgeable.
Listen to me. I don't want to hear you.
It is just an absolute affront when these, my beloved listeners, take me on just because I have to, again, I've got to parachute into your ongoing diatribe that goes on for 40 minutes.
A disgusting abomination.
Disgusting abomination. Find John Rothman on his podcast. It's a daily podcast that brings order to your life. Around the Political World with John Rothman. What's so funny to me is that people give me a hard time about giving you a hard time, when if I couldn't give you a hard time, it would just diminish my enjoyment of this segment. Part of the fun of it for me is that we get to roll around in the dirt together. The Voice of San Francisco is the other place that you can find John, thevoicesf.org. The Voice
under podcasts,
.org. Under podcast, you'll find the wonderful John Rothman, our brother.
And thank you, Mark. Mark, before you go,
yes, sir.
I want to urge everybody to support the Mark Thompson program. It ought to be listened to and heard by people, whether we agree or disagree. Mark and the team, and I include Kim McAllister in that, really do a great public service, and I want to thank you publicly and give you my full support. My pleasure.
Well, I really do appreciate that. And James W., who actually used the F word to try to tell me to stay out of your conversation and just let you run. He, of all people, should support this show because I didn't red card him. I let him use the F word. And so, James, I'm looking for a super sticker from you today. Damn it. All right. John, we love you. See you next week.
Good. See you
John
next
Rothman,
week.
everybody. Bravo, bravo, bravo.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Right on. Thanks to all of our Patreon and PayPal supporters. You are the lifeblood of this show because we can make plans around budgets that are enabled by your contributions monthly. So if you're one of those people who joins us on Patreon or PayPal, thank you. If you're not and you're considering it, please do it. Click the hot link that's under all our videos to Patreon or PayPal and become part of the community that supports us at whatever level you're comfortable. I mean, some have been incredibly generous. I mean, just, numbers that really are so impressive. And then some have been incredibly generous at numbers that don't pop off the screen, but actually when you add it all up, they're equally impressive. So, and really, it's said, give what you can. But it really is true that the monthly donors keep us going. Obviously, all of you who are super stickers, super chatters, that keeps us going as well. But thank you so much. The last thing I'll say on this is some of you have emailed me because you want to send checks. You don't want to be part of some kind of internet thing. So that's fine. If you're interested in that, you're interested in supporting the show kind of in an old school way where you send a check, send me an email, themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com, themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com, and I will send you back the address and you'll be able to join that way. So very, very cool that everybody is here and contributes and that community continues to grow. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
I want to stop in for Kim's news, and I've got something that's not Trump and it's not politics. It is about super wealthy people and a new show that's related to Succession. I don't know how many people saw the HBO series Succession. It was really compelling, well written. Well, the same people that put together Succession are putting together a new series, but what they had to find, I think you'll find particularly intriguing. I'd put it in kind of the category of a nugget that I will share with you after Kim's news. We also have a stories from the sky today, and so that also isn't like directly Washington related or politics related. So we try to give you a little bit of a diversity of a subject matter, not get too caught in what's going on. But there is, I should just mention, still more that we will get to regarding what's going on in terms of pardons with this administration. And, we'll talk also about AI before the end of the show. Kim, are you prepared to carry us through with the newscast?
Always.
All right. Smash the like button like a boss, if you would. Smash it. I'd suggest it with your iron rod.
Smash
it seems to
it
be
with
the way
your
the kids
iron
like
rod.
to do it. They like to smash with their iron rods. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. President Trump is warning that Vladimir Putin feels he must respond to Ukraine's recent drone attacks. Trump said during a phone call with Putin today that the Russian leader told him he has to respond to an attack on the airfields. Trump said it was a good conversation, but not a conversation that will lead to immediate peace in Ukraine. Air quality alerts are being posted from Nebraska to Michigan. This is because of Canadian wildfire smoke. Comes as dozens of wildfires are still burning in the provinces of Manitoba and Saskatchewan. Some parts of Minnesota recorded the highest levels of unhealthy air on Tuesday, where the skies turned gray from wildfire smoke. We hear that here in California.
Oh, yeah. It's a massive conflagration, truly, in Canada. And so, yeah, and this is the second year in a row that this has happened. Some kind of huge Canadian fire has blown south of the border, and now we're living that with the dangerous air quality in all of those states that you mentioned.
Republican senators are gathering at the White House to discuss President Trump's so-called big beautiful bill. Elon Musk called the bill a disgusting abomination yesterday, while House Speaker Mike Johnson...
I'm laughing because we should rebrand it.
We really do need to come up with our own
abomination bill.
Yeah. The big BS bill.
Yeah.
Mike Johnson said the comments that Elon Musk made were very disappointing. He's trying to work to get this BBB passed. Republican Senators Rand Paul and Mike Lee backed Musk's criticism. Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene expressed regret for voting yes on that measure again due to the AI feature. 2 Chinese citizens are facing federal charges for allegedly smuggling a fungus into the United States that can cause a disease in barley, maize, rice, and wheat. One of the 2 works at the University of Michigan laboratory. They're now both being charged with conspiracy, smuggling goods into the United States, making false statements, and visa fraud. The fungus causes a disease called head blight. It's responsible for billions of dollars a year in economic losses around the world.
It's wild what they did with those people because they found this stuff on them. It was in their bags, and they asked them where they got it. And originally they said, we don't know where that came from or something like that. They kind of denied ownership. And then it's kind of what you'd always do, and something's supposed to be contraband or some kind is found with
Not
you.
mine. I don't know.
I don't know how it got there. And then they cop to it. And then when they cop to it, they cop to it being harmless. And then as we learn, I mean, supposedly this is like really, really serious stuff, and that they're indicating, government is, and again, it's a question of how much you believe the story, but it sounds credible on some level, I suppose, that this was an effort on the part of these people to really launch a contagion, I guess might be a way to put it, right? I mean, it was supposed to be like a bioweapon. So.
Right. Yeah. The Colorado attack suspect's family is said to now be cooperating with the FBI, but they could be deported soon anyway. The White House posting a message, 6 one-way tickets for Mohammed's wife and 5 kids. White House posting this. Final boarding call coming soon, is what they say. Egyptian man Mohammed Solomon facing now attempted murder charges in Boulder for the fire attack against a crowd supporting Israeli hostages being held in Gaza. Meanwhile, officials today said the 15 victims of this attack range in age from 25 to 88 years old, one including a dog as well that happened to be at that protest. It's horrible. The FBI is arresting a Washington state man in connection with the bombing on May 17th of a fertility clinic in Palm Springs, California. A U.S. attorney says 32-year-old Daniel Park is charged with providing and attempting to provide material support to a terrorist. The complaint alleges Park supplied 270 pounds of ammonium nitrate to 25-year-old Guy Edward Bartkus, who then detonated a bomb outside the clinic, killing himself and injuring several others. So now an accomplice in that case. Police who have seen an Instagram post attributed to one of the New Orleans jail escapees raided an apartment where they thought that video was recorded. He's playing chicken with police. On the post, escapee Antoine Massey is dressed in a blue sweatsuit, claiming to be innocent. So police raid this apartment not far from the New Orleans Parish Prison, and they found the sweatsuit, but no Massey. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry says the 2 inmates who escaped 20 days ago should stop playing hide and seek and turn themselves in. Yeah, right. That's going to happen.
Yeah, that's
There's a reason that this place is fun.
Yeah, exactly.
He's posting videos that he knows the police are going to see.
It's right out of like a Netflix series or something.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. The manhunt for an escaped killer known as the Devil in the Ozarks is now in its second week. Grant Harden is a 56-year-old one-time police chief who broke out of an Arkansas prison May 25th by disguising himself. And again, the manhunt for him is underway. The family of a 4-year-old Mexican girl being treated for a life-threatening illness has been granted a reprieve from possible deportation. The federal government granted humanitarian parole to this family. It means this girl, identified only as Sophia, can continue receiving care at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. She suffers from a condition known as short bowel syndrome, requiring her to receive nutrition intravenously because she's unable to ingest it on her own. Attorneys for the family say if her medical care is interrupted, even for a brief period of time, that she will likely die. So now the Trump administration will allow her to stay for at least a year in the United States.
What a brutal situation. And it's played out not quite as dramatically in so many other ways. I mean, with other people, I mean.
Malibu High School severely vandalized, allegedly by some of the graduating seniors. Oh, you kids. The vandalism includes the burning of a golf cart, damage to facilities, property, graffiti, stacking of furniture on the roof, super gluing keyholes on classroom doors, and more. Santa Monica Malibu Unified Superintendent calling the vandalism unacceptable. He says senior vandalism has been a problem for about 15 years, saying it's a rite of passage and it also is a crime. He says those responsible will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Graduation will still proceed on June 11th. But yeah, they went over the line there.
Yeah.
There is a growing number of Americans that say the tipping culture is out of control. According to a new Bankrate survey, 41% of respondents said tipping has gotten out of control, while that share rose to 45% among Gen Xers and baby boomers.
There's a Gen Xer saying that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The survey also found pre-entered tip screens have become a particular pain point for consumers, with nearly 2 in 5 respondents saying they find them annoying.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And apparently that tip that you see, excuse me, I got a cough.
Yeah, that little screen they flip around.
It's built into the software. Yeah,
How do you say no?
Right, you're looking at the person. There's a shame component. Yet you're thinking, I don't know what. I mean, I've waited online. I'm here now. I just ordered with you here at the counter. You're going to prepare my stuff. You've given me a number. In some cases, kind of like fast casual type restaurants, I'll go and somebody will indeed bring it to the table. But I mean, how much do I tip for that? I don't take 20%, right? I mean, yet that is one of the defaults, 20%. So it's 15, 20, 25 or other is what I see in a lot of these places, even 30%. It depends on your place. That is to say, what place you're patronizing, but it is odd and a little offensive. I do share, and I'm a kind of a big tipper in the sense that I tip a lot of people. I tip whenever possible, if I feel like it's even close. Anybody helps me with groceries to the car, anybody leads me around in the store or whatever, I'll try to, even as they try to turn it down, I'll stuff it in their pocket or whatever it might be. So I think I throw it around a bit, but there is something a little bit offensive that when some transaction that's really routine and really low rent, you know, it might be some little thing that you're getting, that you end up with that screen always, Kim. I think that's built into the software, which is why we face it over and over again. And I don't blame people for being annoyed with it, I guess. That's my long way of saying that.
Yeah, it is annoying. And because you feel pressure, right?
Sure. I mean, if I have to add 20% onto everything just because I know that that's what I'm facing, or 15 or even 10%, it truly, Courtney's really good with it. Like, I really try to, I don't know, oversteer the other way because I want to be generous rather than, Courtney's sort of like, no, just give him a buck. That's
give him $2 or $3. You know what's interesting? I had to explain to my 11-year-old what places require a tip and what services require a tip and what doesn't. We were in a clothing store, and sometimes I have him pay because I want him to be independent and learn how to do these things. And so he tried to tip a lady at a clothing store where we were buying a gift. And the lady said, "Oh, honey, you don't have to tip me here at this store." And so we get in the car and he's like, "Why would I tip at the place where we get lunch, but I don't tip at the place where I bought a present for my aunt?" It's just interesting how it doesn't make sense. The way we tips, it's nonsensical.
I applaud you, though, for teaching it because I think it does need to be taught. You do leave $5 minimum for the chambermaid, for the person who cleans your room in a motel, hotel, I don't care where, or even, Airbnb maybe. But they already have a cleaning fee built into Airbnb. That's why I said the maybe. But anyway.
Even I get confused, or you don't realize, or you don't know until you screw it up. I once had the tow truck driver who came out to, I don't know, give my car a jump or something. Something happened. And I didn't realize that you're supposed to tip the tow truck driver. And he got miffed. Now I know. Any other time. So now I'll teach him to, always tip the tow truck driver.
Oh, man, I really take care of tow truck drivers.
Totally.
Any kind of, yeah. And here's the other, as long as we're tipping, but these are situations in which you can tip cash. I think what's happening with the blowback on tipping is that it's showing up as boilerplate at the checkout stand.
Yeah.
You give them the card and then boom, it's not just signing it now. Now it's, would you like to leave? And then they give you the options. And as you say, you look up and there's, Rudy looking back at you, and you don't want Rudy to be disappointed with you. So you go, all right, here's 10% on top of the $75 I'm already. Yeah.
I mean, who looks right into Rudy's eye and clicks the no box, right?
Yeah.
No. Nope.
Exactly. Thank you. Exactly.
Lastly, there's a California track star who lost her state title for the way she celebrated her win at her championship race.
What?
The governing board for sports in California is called the CIF, and it disqualified Clara Adams from North Salinas High School for grabbing a fire extinguisher and using it to put out her spikes after she won the 400-meter event. It was kind of like, oh, my feet are so hot. I'm so, my feet are on fire.
God.
I'm going to hose them down. The CIF said, no, that is unsportsmanlike, no can do. Clara's dad says the stunt was done away from the other competitors and it wasn't meant to be disrespectful. He also said that the crowd loved it. He's the one that handed her the fire extinguisher, but no go. The state title has been taken away from her and given to the runner-up, and she may also have some other repercussions for what they're calling unsportsmanlike conduct.
Wow, that's something. That really is. Repercussions is a ding word. I do want to mention on the tips, Colleen Shannon says, if you can afford to eat out or DoorDash, congratulations, you are rich compared to the people providing the service.
Yeah.
They are often contractors who do not receive any benefits at all.
Good day, sir.
But DoorDash is obvious. I mean, there's some people that the tip leaving is obvious. What I'm saying is it seems to be that I'm always learning that, oh, you have to leave a tip for this person too. Like,
Kim's making a point about always learning. I'm talking about the boilerplate screen that comes up. I get it when I'm out at a restaurant or whatever it may be, but the boilerplate screen is what in some situations can be annoying. Again, we didn't express the annoyance.
Yeah.
What's happening is the next generation coming up, in case you're just joining us, they're saying this is annoying. More and more of that generation is saying, and Gen Xers too, saying, so that's the way the society is changing. The last thing I'll say on tipping, I expected I would do like 9 minutes on tipping, but I was talking to a restaurant owner in West Hollywood, California. Okay, so that's just near Hollywood, of course, near Beverly Hills. And they have their own kind of administrative blueprint. It's different than Los Angeles. It's also different than a lot of places around the country. A lot of places around the country, you make a lower wage. And this is in nice restaurants because the tip is supposed to take that wage up to a living wage. Similarly, you start with a wage, and then based on the tips you receive, it's discounted against that starting wage. Do you understand? If you get that's not uncommon. That does happen in parts of the country. So in West Hollywood, this is a high-end restaurant, and I've heard this from a couple of high-end restaurant owners. They get a minimum wage of $20 an hour.
Okay.
Then on top of that, they get tips, and these bills run $250 to $450 average, okay, for a dinner. And so people are tipping 20% on that. And they're getting that on top of their minimum wage, which is already quite high at $20 an hour. He told me, this one restaurant owner recently, his people are making $150,000 to $225,000 a year.
Yeah, at a high-end restaurant, that's right.
Yeah, but I'm just
for
saying
that type of service. Yeah,
sure. So, but I also feel that after talking to him, I thought, I mean, probably that minimum wage could be reduced. He's paying, in other words, he's suffering under the minimum wage requirement, knowing though that his people are actually making a ton of money. Like you could drop the minimum wage completely, and they would still walk away with a good chunk of money. See, that was what his complaint was.
I don't feel bad for the restaurant owner in that case. You have a restaurant in the Hollywood area. Do you know how much it costs to live in that region? Those people that make $150,000, if they're single or if they have a kid to support, they're probably still struggling.
Well, let me just speak for the restaurant owner. I would say, well, do you know how much it costs to run a restaurant in a Hollywood area? I mean, clearly not. The restaurants, that rent is insanely high. There are a lot of other things that are associated with running a restaurant there in the Hollywood area, West Hollywood area, that also, I mean, requirements that of all sorts that cost money. And so on some level, I mean, I'm sympathetic to having to provide a payroll for a staff that is going to well exceed whatever minimums. I mean, again, I'm not
$20 an hour as a minimum wage at a restaurant. I don't think that's bad. I mean, don't look at what the tipping is. Don't look at what extra they get, because on any given day that could fluctuate. Well, but they have to guarantee a certain wage.
I'm not I'm not crying any shedding any tears for either side in this. I think everybody's doing well. But again, I do agree. That's the exception, not the rule. That's what Bicycle Mike is saying. Mark, that's the exception, not the rule. Yeah, I was just trying to give you a sense of what it was like and what I heard just recently from a high-end restaurant. Here is from Sandy. I waitress for 10 plus years. We were taxed on our sales, not our tips. If a customer didn't leave a tip at all, we still had to pay taxes on that sale. That's fascinating to me. Wow. Yeah. That really sucks. I'd never heard of that before. Like you're paying a tax on their tab. Wow. That seems to me to be, I mean, that's restaurant revenue. That's not your revenue. I don't know why that would be, but that's crazy. As Dan says, nonsense. Yeah, exactly.
One last tidbit. I would add that it is, and this is for you, Mark, National Hug Your Cat Day.
Yes.
But you're not supposed to be surprised if they don't hug you back. There you go. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. I ran out of my vanilla tea, and so I dipped into the mango tea because I was so addicted to vanilla. Now I've got the mango in my cup, and now I think I might be getting addicted to the mango tea for summer. So good. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. I love the teas. Mark loves the coffee, and we've got an exclusive show discount just for you. Check it out at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Thank you. They have the regular mango tea, and then they'll put it in a giant bag and package it to you as mango sun tea. I think it's the same tea, but it's really cool the way they do it. Makes for a great summer gift. The CoachellaValleyCoffee.com super secret Mark Thompson show code, Mark T at checkout. Mark T, no spaces. You notice it's Mark T. I mean, it's not Mark Kim Albert. No, Mark T, no spaces. enter that, get your 10%.
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Then you ship it really fast. You'll get your coffee and tea, and you'll be really happy because I know
never
I
been
am.
anything like this.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it. I'm still drinking a whole pot from this morning.
What's in the cup today?
So good, so good, so good. Yeah.
Are you using the chit cup today?
No, actually, this is an old school cup. It's like a diner cup that we put a sticker on from the old Get Mark merch site. By the way, there's a big update on our merch site coming up. I think Courtney's coming in next week to talk about it. So
Shout out.
Right on.
big shout out. Big shout out.
I'm Kim McAllister. This is the Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
That's not fake. That's real.
It's fantastic.
There's never been anything like this.
We've never seen anything like it before.
Nobody has ever put something like this together that I've ever seen.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
There is nothing in our history that quite compares to this.
Big shout out.
Receive the rod of equity and mercy.
I did everything right and they indicted me. I misspoke. My bad. I'm sorry.
I don't think you should apologize for how you feel.
Did you really just do that?
Right on, everybody. Thank you, the generous audience that is part of our community supporting this show. There is Nullifidian with a $2 super chat. When the going gets tough, the tough watch, the Mark Thompson Show. There is Rick, who says, here's $31, $30 for the Mark Thompson Show, and $1 for Courtney and her tipping. Yes, exactly. Courtney likes the dollar tip. I don't think she's like $1, like a couple dollars, but yeah, $1 pretty much does say it. And this from Richard. Mark, would you consider this puny bribe? Times are tough, bro. Here's $5 to bequeath the rod of equity and mercy upon Vicky and Sausalito and Trevor Starr. I will bestow the rod of equity and mercy to Vicky and upon Trevor Starr because Richard has asked for it. Yes, I will bestow it upon them both. But I have to know that they're in a receiving position. I mean, I don't just do this, Richard.
What's the position? Assume the position.
It's not a physical position, Kim.
Oh.
It is a mental state, an emotional state.
Sorry, my mind wandered.
Yeah, exactly. You're always going to that place.
I stand corrected.
All right.
Into a naughty place.
Well,
Yeah.
you're just all right. Here we go. So I will ask you then, Vicky and Sausalito, and who's the other?
Trevor Starr in Hollywood.
And Trevor, of course, in Hollywood. I have to myself get in something of a trance-like state, so give me a second. It's not easy.
Oh, money potty.
Kim, please don't disturb the energy. All right. Everyone, receive and...
Receive the rod of equity and mercy.
Again.
Receive the rod of equity and mercy.
Congratulations, Vicky and Trevor. You are now bestowed upon. Yes. Wow. The generosity on the part of this audience to ask for that for somebody else. When the gang gets tough, the tough watch it. Yeah, I just read that. That's
Sorry.
really, really good.
Did you get Maryland too?
I didn't get Maryland with the super sticker. Thank you, all of you who have contributed to the show on the air live, but also many of you who get in late. How is Mr. Predicto? Asks shadow producer Calvin Wong. I'll check in with Mr. Predicto if we have something to predict.
Will the big, beautiful bill pass?
All right. We can ask Mr. Predicto that. If that's what the crowd wants. Is that what you want, Albert? I feel like Albert hasn't been a big part of the show today. That's why I give him the call out.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm always down for Mr. Predicto.
All right, Mr. Predicto, will the big, beautiful bill, as it's called, will that pass?
There is no doubt.
Sorry, Kim. Yeah, sorry, that is very bad news out of Mr. Predicto. Yeah.
Oh, what a bummer. I don't really care for that answer.
Yeah, well, again, don't ask the question if you're not ready to get the answer you may not be happy with. Trevor Starr in Hollywood says, actually, I did receive the rod in a private ceremony, but I appreciate the public grandeur. The $10.10 super chat. All right, thank you guys.
Private ceremonies as well?
I didn't know there might have been one. I can't watch everything. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
Might have been a private ceremony that I was unaware of. I wanted to share one story with you, unrelated to politics. Then I will get into a couple of key resignations that are happening in Washington at key administrative outposts. And I think you should know about them, and I'll give them to you in just a second. But if you saw the series Succession, the showrunner was Jesse Armstrong, name of the guy, and the location manager for Jesse Armstrong's latest project, it's called Mountainhead, had to, again, this is a film about the richest people in the world, okay? So think Succession, okay? It's that kind of caliber of wealth. And they need to find locations for this. So that's what this location manager is doing. So he needs to find, for Mountainhead, with their moneyed protagonists, they want them living large, but again, they don't live large with the kind of flamboyance and the gilded, gold-covered stuff that Donald Trump does. Its characters are way too wealthy, they say, for like McMansions and that kind of private residence with a long driveway and, as I say, sort of gold-encrusted or even gold-colored exteriors. So portraying how the ultra-wealthy really live with all their subtle signals and status cues, that's what they're doing. Not just about private jets, sprawling homes, but the quiet hierarchies, they say, within the top 1%. There is a pecking order between the 0.01% and the 0.001%. The kind of distinction that insiders say is like owning a Gulfstream G450 versus a Gulfstream G700. So they found a lavish 21,000 square foot ski chalet built into a hill in Deer Valley in Utah. And apparently that was the perfect place and setting for some of these characters in this new film. It's not only large and impressive, although it's certainly that, but it has a subtlety that makes it almost understated, even as it's so grand. There's a kind of quiet, wealthy embedded in that location that doesn't necessarily scream at you, the location manager says. It reveals itself slowly. He points out that it has a private gondola with direct access to a nearby ski resort. Again, it's not flashy, but it's deeply exclusive, the kind of feature that signals a level of access and control that money affords without ever needing to show off. It's a satirical drama called Mountainhead. 4 rich friends in tech who gather for a weekend of carousing while the world is plunged into chaos. So this is really, sounds like it could be interesting, but it's a window on the plutocracy, if you want to think of it that way. And it was interesting to me that this guy had to find a location to tell that story. Again, the location is the shorthand for how wealthy these people are. And in real life, the house is on West Crestwood Court in Deer Crest, which is a gated community adjacent to Deer Valley. And Khloe Kardashian stays there, and Gwen Stefani, they have stayed there, both of them. So you may find it if you want and take a look. It has an infinity pool, a whirlpool bath, 5,000 square foot heated patio. Yeah. And it's something special. So again, ultra luxury, but not the overstated type.
And you haven't seen it? Have you watched it yet?
I think it is it
It's
out
on,
yet?
yeah, it's on HBO Max, I believe.
Oh wow. Have you seen any of it?
Nikki was recommending it to me yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah.
This is cool. Well, I didn't know that. I thought they were still shooting it, but I guess the shooting is done and the series is complete. It's supposed to be, again, satirical. So like if Succession had a little more satire associated with it, maybe is what I'm beginning to understand. But is that what Nikki was saying as well?
She said it was really good. She said Steve Carell is in it. There's some, she said it was interesting but dark.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because I guess the rest of the world gets plunged into chaos, as we were saying. So anyway, that's their main hang is there in Deer Valley. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
The top January 6th prosecutor has quit the Department of Justice, slamming the pardons that Donald Trump issued as a green light for violence. He resigned while criticizing these sweeping pardons that were rolled out by President Trump. I was shocked, if not stunned, by the breadth of the pardons, said Greg Rosen, who headed the former Capitol siege section in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia. I think the message that they send is that political violence toward a political goal is acceptable in a modern democratic society, he said. Individuals who were duly and appropriately convicted of federal crimes ranging in culpability are immediately let loose without any supervision, without any remorse, without any rehabilitation to civil society. He oversaw some of the roughly 1,500 federal prosecutions related to the Capitol riot. The offenses range from trespassing with a dangerous or deadly weapon to assaulting law enforcement. It was January 20th, the same day that Donald Trump took office, that he pardoned all those convicted and called it a grave national injustice that they were prosecuted at all.
He looks kind of tough in his picture. He looks like a guy you don't want to go up against in the courtroom. He's ready to fight.
He was the real thing, apparently. I mean, I'm sure they gave it to a guy who was, who was bringing it, But he's now seen this sea change in the administration that he was, in the country that he was serving. He wasn't serving this administration, obviously, necessarily. Wasn't even necessarily in a primary role in this administration. But I was going to try to get you the CDC expert also who resigned, a pretty high-profile resignation. And again, this is the COVID Vaccine Advisory Panel. And apparently, Dr. Lashmi, and then you'll have to help me with it's a long Greek name, or perhaps it's, maybe it's an Indian name. I don't, it could be, it's an Asian. Help me, Albert. I feel like it's PANAGIOTAKOPOULOS. Anyway, this pediatric infectious disease expert, if you'd like to take a crack at it, Kim, I would be happy to yield to you.
Panagiotokopoulos.
You know what? I'm giving it to her.
A pediatric pediatric infectious disease expert, was a co-leader of a working group on COVID vaccines and advised experts on the CDC's advisory committee on immunization practices. So pretty high up at the CDC.
Yeah, and in that role, she was part of the advisory committee on immunization practices. And so you can imagine she runs afoul of this new administration and RFK Jr. In fact, her resignation comes 1 week after RFK Jr., a longtime vaccine skeptic, of course, who oversees the CDC and the FDA and the NIH, said that the COVID vaccine for healthy children and healthy pregnant women had been removed from the CDC's recommended immunization schedule. That was a departure from the process in which these experts meet, they vote on changes, they shape policy. Not anymore. At the CDC, NIH, et cetera, it's RFK Jr.'s edict. It's just like the White House.
She said, my career in public health and vaccinology started with a deep-seated desire to help the most vulnerable members of our population. And that, she said, is not something I am able to continue doing in this role.
Yeah, I mean, you can read between the lines. In other words, with this crew, I can't do my job anymore responsibly. I can't sign on to these ridiculous recommendations that this new crew is recommending. So, Pete Hegseth is skipping the Ukraine meeting at NATO headquarters. That may be no surprise. ICE is at large in a big way. Trump is essentially allowing this ICE team to expand. So they are calling on more and more agencies that aren't necessarily ICE to be folded into ICE so this effort can continue, and that Stephen Miller, who was literally shouting at various people associated with this immigration deportation effort, shouting at them so they can hit his designated quota of 3,000 immigrants a day being deported. Operation at Large, a nationwide ICE-led plan already underway to ramp up arrests of unauthorized immigrants, includes more than 5,000 personnel from across federal law enforcement agencies, up to 21,000 National Guard troops. The operation plan is sweeping. It is complete. Drawing those numbers from other law enforcement agencies has been a source of tension, of course, among some who say, look, there's other stuff going on in this country, but besides this quota that you have for deporting all of these people. And when you pull that many law enforcement agents and even adjunct military officials and military members into this ICE effort, you take away from our ability to handle these other things. But mass deportation is shaping and reshaping federal law enforcement, and they're shifting more and more resources into that.
Oh, Elon Musk is escalating. Look what he wrote on X today. Call your senator, call your congressman. Bankrupting America is not okay. Kill the bill.
Wow. Musk taking on Trump. Pretty wild. I'm surprised, but again, if you just look at the general timeline for most of these relationships with Trump, even here, I thought it might last longer because Musk is such a powerful guy with his money. But Trump got everything he needed out of Musk. He got the presidency, skated on all of those legal, that thicket of legal stuff that was going to affect him should he not be president. Might have actually ended up with his incarceration or house arrest, right? In addition to all kinds of fines. All that stuff evaporated and went away when he won. Now he's able to impulsively make these pronouncements about tariffs, about whatever, and he has his party so scared they all jump. And in that spirit, I don't need Elon Musk anymore. He must be thinking on some level. And as I mentioned the first hour, Doge and Elon are acquiring a stink that Trump doesn't want on him. Trump still polls relative to Elon very, very well. Elon polls poorly. So in terms of public support, there is almost none that Trump would want. He doesn't benefit from having Elon around. And Trump himself isn't hugely popular, right? So, and once these policies kick in, he's really going to see, I think, a corresponding drop in support in polls. But anyway, I think he didn't want that stink on him. So that's what my guess is on Musk. I'd love to hit a stories from the sky before we leave. Is it possible, Albert? Are we ready to go?
I am ready.
This is Stories from the Sky.
We have clearance, Clarence.
Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Enough is enough! I have had it with these monkey-fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane! Everybody strap in!
It was Sunday night, a flight on British Airways taking off from SFO around 5 o'clock in the evening. One of the crew members, a 41-year-old man, was not present during meal service, prompting the rest of the crew to start looking for him. Well, they found him dancing naked in the business class bathroom. Oh, well.
Wait, what? The flight attendant?
The flight attendant.
Wow. Naked on the
members
job. Nice.
dressed him in pajamas. You know, they wanted to get that naked body into something, so they put him in pajamas and restrained him in a first-class seat for the rest of the flight. British Airways said that the incident was a matter for the police. They didn't provide further comment. Police were contacted around 9:30 in the morning following the concern for welfare of this man on this inbound flight from San Francisco. Officers did arrest the man after he received medical attention. He was arrested on suspicion of being unfit for duty. I don't mean to chuckle, but I mean, like, just saying it's, yeah. He has since been released under investigation, the police department says. So there have been no charges filed, at least to the best of our reporting at this point. But never seen a naked flight attendant and never even seen a dancing flight attendant. And the flight attendants do get pretty loose on, like, some of those Southwest flights. They, you know, they change the announcement around. They make it kind of fun. They sing it sometimes, whatever. I've never seen nakedness. So it struck us as worthy of a note. And that's getting a first-class upgrade the hard way, says Tom. Yeah. Ain't that
I didn't
true?
know it was against the law to be naked nudie. I guess at work you can't do that.
How are you going to dance in that limited space? You know, I want to try something here, Albert. This is in the moment. This is a new thing we can do. We're going to try it. I don't know.
Are you going to dance for us?
No, I was going to add the chat for an instant for reaction. You know what I'm talking about, Albert? You've seen it, right? On this platform, we can do that.
I haven't seen it yet. This is
Let me try it. Let me try it. You should be able to see the chat. Let me just look. When people have reactions to things, I was thinking of using this for Florida, for example.
Are we experimenting on the air?
Yeah, maybe I'll just maybe I'll
right.
wait. I thought it was as easy as doing that, but I guess it's not. You can't see them right now?
No.
No, I do see the option that you
Oh,
click.
yeah, down below, Albert. They're
Oh,
little.
yeah. You
Oh,
can
yeah,
see
there they are. Okay,
bottom,
so you do see it. Okay,
of the
good.
It's hard to read it, though. They're so little.
Yeah, it depends if you're, you know, how you're looking at the show. If you're watching on a big screen, you might be able to do it. Anyway, we kind of are going to try this in Florida and try this in certain segments. So just a way in which we can see what you're saying. Talk about the Mile High Club. Exactly. Cats and Jams. Got it. Right. We can all.
He wasn't
super chat,
hurting
Mark.
anybody. The only thing that he was hurting was getting caught. So I didn't see. I mean, who cares what you're doing in a locked bathroom, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, apparently, if you're not showing up to your job at all, I mean, you're not there to. I don't know what was going on in that bathroom. I'm guessing more than just dancing.
Mark was not able to get his champagne refilled. Okay, well, the guy's in there dancing around naked. So
yeah, exactly. That's precisely right.
I mean, he could have been in there doing who knows what for like 2 to 3 minutes. He could
I
be
ordered a
dancing there naked
Prosecco
if he
4
wanted.
minutes ago. Where is it? Exactly. Well, thank you, everyone. That is Stories from the Sky.
This has been Stories from the Sky. The captain has turned off the seatbelt sign, and you are now free to move about the cabin.
I would note something on the way out here. Karine Jean-Pierre leaving the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
She's written a new book. Why not? Everybody from the Biden administration writing books. Let me guess. It was a bad place to work. What was the name of the book, Kim? I ask you.
Broken White House.
Broken White House, exactly. We'll see her on Fox News soon to plug her book. She's changing political parties. She's not going to continue as a Democrat. She is going to be an independent. Switched her affiliation. Until January 20th, she says, I was responsible for speaking on behalf of the President of the United States. At noon on that day, I became a private citizen who, like all Americans and many of our allies around the world, had to contend with what was to come next for our country. I determined that the danger we face as a country requires freeing ourselves of boxes. We need to be willing to exercise the ability to think creatively and plan strategically.
The book is called Independent, a look inside a broken White House outside the party lines.
I see. Okay. She's 50 years old. She succeeded Jen Psaki as press secretary in 2022. She was serving as deputy press secretary before that. And she was criticized at times for being evasive about Joe Biden's physical condition. And I would be interested actually to skim that book. I don't know if I quite want to read it. But she might have some thoughts. I'm sure it would be interesting. I'll wait on it. But it seems as though there might be some interesting stuff in there. I don't understand why you need to change political parties, and yet I also do understand why you need to change political parties. I mean, she's saying, look, the Democrats need a reboot, and until they get a reboot, I'm going to go independent. Sadly, it's a two-party world. I mean, it really is. I mean, I wish it were not, but it is. And so, given the choice, and both of them are imperfect choices, but one is way more imperfect in my judgment than the other. So, but she's independent. So, there you have it. All right, Albert, Kim, I think we have to wrap up around here.
That's it? Wow.
Is there anything else that I'm leaving out
I believe
that you wanted me to get to?
You have this from Harry.
Harry says, I'd give you $5 for every idiot in D.C. that should resign, but I'm not a billionaire. Yeah, your point is a lot of people need to resign in Washington, D.C. Can't argue. I really agree. Hey, when is that great military parade? You know, I love a parade.
I think that's June 14th, I want to say.
So exciting. Randy says, what happened to ending the war in one day as promised by Trump? Yeah, what about that? Well, he didn't say what day, okay? It might be one day coming soon, but apparently we haven't gotten to the day.
2 weeks, yeah.
What model is the Mark Thompson jet? Yeah, exactly. It's whatever jet pulls up to gate B-23. That's the kind of jet it is. Well, I'd like to stay, but alas, we must move along. Somebody sent me an email saying, why don't you announce on the show when you're on the radio in Los Angeles? And the reason I don't is because I feel like it's so few people can hear. The show we do is for more than just Angelinos, but I would say if you are in Los Angeles, you want to hear it, or you want to hear it on iHeartRadio, I'm on today at 4 o'clock. But again, it's a much different show. If you're expecting this show on radio, you're going to be surprised. I love it. I love radio, and I love KFI radio, but it's a different show than this. So I would just say don't expect that if you are cruising around and listening. After Party Live's going down on the After Party Live station. Tomorrow, it is the great David Katz with legal analysis and more SCOTUS decisions on the way. Shadow.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
All is right with the world with Shadow's voice.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
We are out of time. Thank you all. Until tomorrow. Bye-bye.